I'm Janet.
I'm Jacia.
I'm Rachel, and this is Walk is Happening. Hi, guys. So, today we'll be talking about some of our real life problems. So, should we start off with Jacia? Because I know she has a fun little story that she can share with us today.
I bet her dog is barking. She's on mute.
Or maybe her cat.
Yeah, go. Yeah, Mao.
Am I?
Or maybe her.
I'm unmuted.
Oh shit.
Oh.
Wait, did I? Okay, let me.
No, you were muted.
No, I was unmuted. Okay. So, um, last Saturday I went out to. I don't know how specific I should be. Should I be specific?
Whatever you're comfortable with, I guess.
Yeah, and expose them if they're janan, you know?
I don't know what that means, but okay, I will. Okay, so last Saturday I was at like Science Park. And I was gonna go biking with some friends, right?
Mhm.
And I was early. I didn't know where to go, so I was like, I sat at Starbucks. So I was like ordering my drink, and I was waiting for my drink, and then this guy, like, I made eye contact with him, but sometimes you accidentally make eye contact, so it doesn't really seem like anything. Right? Yes. So
Yes.
then I was like trying to find a seat, and then I found a seat. So I sat down at like a stool bar side table sort of thing. And in Starbucks, could they like got your toy like so like they close off some seats like for social distancing.
Mhm.
And there's like a really obvious sign that says you can't use a seat. So I sat down, and there were two like unusable seats next to me, and then this guy who I made eye contact with earlier, he comes to sit next to me, right? And so I just thought like, okay, it's nothing, because maybe he just wants to sit, right? But I already like the vibes are already like a bit off. So I was like, just like my headphones in, both of my headphones in. I was like, you look looking at my phone, like waiting for my friends, right? And then like he like taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, I like your earrings, like in Chinese. But like he said like my piercing was really cool. And I was like, I take off one earphone, I was like, oh thanks, because how am I supposed to also reply, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he just keeps talking. He just kept on asking questions. Um, he's like, oh, like, do you work here? And I was like, no, I'm not that old. I was like, I'm a student. Like, oh, I like Hockside. And he's like, oh, cool. Like, and he's like, oh, are you from like CU? Because CU is the only closest university. And I was like, oh no, I'm like a high school student. I'm trying to imply that I'm underage, because technically I still am, right? And so then he's like, oh, you like oh, you're wearing tea like in tea. Like he said I look a lot more mature. I was like, thank you. I was trying to give like very short, like unable to like,
Yeah.
yeah, continue the conversation. But he just kept on asking me questions. So he was like, oh, your voice is really deep. And I was like, what? Like out of nowhere. I'm like gone. And he's like, oh, like you sound like a man. And I was like, what? That was so rude. That was actually, he's like a Boston and teal like a lab dial. I was like, huh? I was like, oh. And so I laughed it off, and he's like, are you sure you're not a guy? I was like, no.
Wait, what?
That is like, it's so rude.
It took a turn I wasn't expecting.
I wasn't expecting that as well. I thought he was like hitting on you.
Yeah.
You thought I expected that?
What?
I was like,
plot
I was
twist.
I was like, oh no, 真係 like my voice is just like that. He's like, oh, it's okay, it's cool. I was like, oh, okay, okay. And he's like, and I started speaking English in hopes that he would not understand English, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, Lee Hoxan. I was like, yeah, I'm still in high school. I said that in English. He's like, oh, and he replied in English. So I was like, fuck. So he was like, oh,
Bonjour.
no, he didn't say bonjour. Okay. And then he's like, oh, like, are you like graduating or like final year? And I was like, oh, I still have one more year left. Okay, I'm obviously lying, right? And then he's like, And he like starts to talk a bit more about himself. He's like, oh, I also study in the UK. Like 我喺英國讀書啦，跟住翻嚟揾工啦。And I was like, I just nodded because I don't know how I'm supposed to reply to that.
Mhm.
And then he said, oh, where do you want to go to university? And you know, my thinking is not that fast. So I still said like the UK. He's like, oh, 你想讀咩啊? I said fine arts, which I don't want to do fine arts, right? But he's like, oh, and he like looks at me with like a really confused look. He's like, what's that? I was like, paintings and drawing. He's like, oh. And then he asked me, do you have a portfolio I can see? Like, he's like, oh, 你有冇 portfolio 可以睇下? And I said, no, I'm still working on it. He's like, oh, okay, it's okay. And then he was just like, oh, and then he started asking me like where I live. He's like, oh, do you go to like when he realized I go to international school because I started speaking English. So he said, but there's no international schools around here. And I was like, ha 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 ha. Like I laughed it off. Like I also don't want to like answer that. And he's like, oh, do you live around here? And I was like, dude, am I gonna get kidnapped? I was genuinely so scared. I was like, but you know, I'm also not good at fucking thinking on my feet. So I was like, I live in Taipo, which I don't live in Taipo. I was like, oh, I live in Taipo. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, oh, 咁你點解會 like 喺依頭 like 做嘢? Like, what are you doing here? You know, like, why are you here? And I was like, oh, 我一陣同啲 like 同學去玩啊. And then he's like, 喺 Science Park 度玩冇乜嘢玩喎喺度. And I was like, yeah, you know, just 睇下. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then he paused for a bit, and then I checked my phone, and suddenly my friends are actually here. So I was like, okay, sorry, I have to go. And he puts out his hand. He's like, oh, before you leave, he's like, oh, my name is blah blah blah. Nice to meet you. So obviously I don't want to be rude, right?
Mhm.
So I was like kind of like half shaking his hand. I was like, oh, nice to meet you. And then I gave him like a fake name, and he's like, they one way, like, do you want me, or do you want to add me as a friend? So that I thought like probably like Facebook friend, right? And at that point I was like, I was genuinely scared. Like I was like, am I gonna get like stalked or kidnapped or like? And then I was like, no, it's okay. And then he's like, oh, okay, 下次啦. And I was like, oh, and I fucking zoomed. I zoomed out there so fast. I was like sweating. My hands are sweaty. I was like running. And it was a hot day too. So I was like, by the time I got out there, I was like, dude. Oh. Yeah.
Maybe
and he I don't know. Like the thing is he didn't look young, but he obviously wasn't that young. So he looks, I would say, like 30 歲啦, I think. A bit older. Maybe like late 20s, early 30s. So I was just like, you know.
What if it's like the dramas and he's like some son of some like huge company and he wants to see your portfolio to see if he can offer you a job, you know?
I do not think so.
See, this is why I would get scammed.
This is why Rachel stays at home.
Yep. But it was scary. Like I genuinely thought, I was like, dude, is he going to like kidnap me or some shit? Like you don't ask someone for like where they live, where they go to school, where they work, like what their like occupation is, like out of nowhere, you know. And he sat there for quite a while before he even talked to me. He sat there for like 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah, so I was just kind of like, okay.
That has never happened to me. Well, I've met some weird people. Like I can't tell if they're just being creepy or like that's just their personality. They're just really extroverted and like talking to everyone. But then in your case, it sounds like he's just kind of creepy.
Yeah, like I understand like maybe people wanting to like talk to you. Like I understand like that, but I think the vibe you get is different. Or like you wouldn't go so fast into personal details and you know blatantly asking me like where do you live, like do you live around here, like that's already like so sketch. So maybe we just want to leave. And I left, and then I biked for 20 kilometers, so it was fine. It was fine.
And you just learned how to bike like what, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, dude, so impressed. So impressed with myself. Only one minor injury, but that was it.
Lance Armstrong has got nothing on you.
Heck yeah. But yeah, it was like, and like, so when I met up with my friends, I obviously told them, and they didn't really reply with much. They were just like, they kind of laughed it off. I was like, oh, ha, 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 like, he's just like some creep. Like, oh, it's just probably nothing. But I think it's different. Oh no, I was like so
Yeah, I mean, like it depends on
scared.
the person, right?
Yeah.
Like if it were to happen to someone else, like that person might not have just like brush it off or something. I don't know. It really depends.
Yeah.
So, what would you have
And I
done in
think
that situation? Like Rachel.
I'm so clueless that I probably would think that he's a very friendly guy, and I'm like, yo, hey. No,
oh my
like,
God.
because in this, it's less creepy, but when I was in World Scholars Cup a few years ago, we were in Malaysia, and then just a random person walked up to me and was like, hey, I remember seeing you in one of the competitions we did earlier. And I was like, oh,
Okay, but that's different.
true. But then he
It's like
asked
a
for my
competition.
number, and then I was like,
Okay, well, okay, at that point, basically he was
sure.
hitting on you.
I don't know.
I think
Yeah, and then I
things
just
it's
gave
hard
my
to
number
tell.
out because I'm so awkward in those kind of situations. And this is why
Mm.
I get scammed. So that's why I think if I were in that situation, he probably would have stolen my credit card, stolen my ID, and probably I would be like kidnapped and probably be sold somewhere.
What?
But that's a bit extreme. But okay. Whatever you want to believe. Okay.
How about you, Janet? Do you have similar?
Or like, what would you do?
I don't know. It depends, right? Like, to what extent is it a cultural thing? I'm thinking. Because from my experience, I know when I go visit my family in Canada, people there are a lot more open and friendly. Like, even when I'm buying stuff from like the drugstore, like the supermarket or whatever, the cashier just like strikes up a conversation with you like that. Like, it's very easy for them. They're like, oh, hi, like, it's very friendly.
Yeah.
Like, I had culture shock when I went there, but then because I stayed there for usually 2 months over summer, then I get used to it, and then I come back and I'm like, oh, people here are just not as talkative.
Yeah.
And because you said he came from UK, right? So maybe it's a culture thing. I don't know. I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt here, or
No, I
maybe
mean,
I'm
but
just like being devil's advocate. But I don't know.
I don't know. He said he studied there, so he 그 분산도에 herang강연. So I don't
And
know.
he might be lying. So.
That's true.
Because I know I would not do something like that. I find it hard to just strike up a conversation with someone I do not know.
Right?
Yeah. Well, actually, sometimes when you meet people, you kind of feel like a vibe. You think to yourself, I think me and this person will have a good conversation, and you're just really natural, like almost immediately, and you share a lot. And then sometimes the vibe is like off or different, and you're more closed off. So yeah, I think it depends. But most of the time, I'd say 80% of the time, I am very isolated from strangers.
And I feel like, those kind of like, it is very different in many parts of the, and like, okay, I think what also triggered me a bit, like during that situation, was everything that was like going on in social media at that time. And it made me like a bit more paranoid, I feel like, just because you like what if that shit like happens to me, right? So it made me like more aware, but I feel like it is different because like maybe sometimes like someone just wants to like come up and like talk to you and like you end up like being really good friends, but then like, or like someone seems like an open person, but then they're like actually a really bad person, but you think you can trust them, and then like bad shit happens, blah, right? I mean, you obviously don't find that stuff happening in Hong Kong, just because Hong Kong is a very like not conservative, like very like, I don't know what that word is.
Homogenous?
No, I feel like
Wait,
everyone,
are you talking? Yeah.
like in public, they're very like,
oh yeah, like
not isolated, but like very like individual. Like
yeah.
yeah.
they're less open.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
less open. Like
Yeah.
culturally we are quite I guess respectful of one another
Yeah,
and
yeah,
of
yeah.
one another's boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like when I was in America, like even like
mhm.
so I was just walking with my family, and then some guy was like, "Oh, I really love your shirt." Like he was an employee there, right? I was like, "Oh, I really love your shirt." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." Like that's you never see that shit in Hong Kong, right? Like no one's gonna
Yeah.
shout across like, "Oh my God, I love your outfit." Like
Mhm.
you do not see that at all. So I don't know.
There's like a high power distance in
Mm,
like Chinese culture, I feel like, especially
mm,
with people who are older than you.
mhm.
And like in terms of like hierarchies, there's a very high power distance or like a large one.
Mhm.
Mm, I kind of wish that Chinese culture would be more like friendly, like, hey, I love your shirt, like type of thing. Because I think
Yeah.
it's nice. Sometimes when people like do give me like the occasional, like strangers especially do give like the occasional compliment, I feel really good. I feel really, really, really good.
Yeah, like it's
I
so
feel really good. Yeah.
nice.
It's not, I don't think it's creepy at all. It's so nice. But then at the same time, I'm like, I appreciate them giving me this compliment. Why am I not giving other people compliments because I know how it feels? So
Yeah.
then we go back to that whole like power distance thing. I don't want to be weird, like mindset, and it just stops you
Yeah.
from doing it, even though you know that it will probably make someone's day.
Yeah. Because like I feel like you see it a lot in like Western countries
Mhm.
rather than like like Southeast Asian or like
Mhm.
Asian countries in general. Like it's rare.
You
And
know,
I don't
actually,
know.
wait, I have a good example for this though. Like,
Okay, no, go ahead.
because half my family is in Hong Kong and the other half is in Canada, like literally
Mm-hmm.
half half, 50-50. So
Mm-hmm.
my dad's side is in Canada, like everyone, and the entire of my mom's side is in Hong Kong except for like one family. So
Uh-huh.
okay, yeah, that's this 50-50, right? My relationship with my Canadian cousins is very, very different to that of my Hong Kong cousins. Even though in terms of age, I am more similar to my Hong Kong cousins. Like I'm the youngest on both sides. I'm the youngest cousin for both sides. Like I have cousins who like already have kids because my parents had me like pretty late. So on my dad's side, the youngest cousin that I have is probably like 22, 22. And then the oldest is probably like, yeah, I don't know, 30 something. And on my mom's side, the youngest cousin I have is 19. I think she's 20 this year. And my relationship with my Canadian cousins is much, much closer because they initiate a lot of the conversations and reaching out and stuff. But then in Hong Kong, because everyone is sort of like me, it's like nobody really reaches out and nobody is the one to initiate the conversation in the first place. So it's like, it's not that we're not close, but then it's like an invisible, hidden, we don't talk about this close. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it might be different for Jacia because I know she like literally lives with all of them. So like how is it is it different? Like are you close to them?
No, I'm not close to any of my cousins. Like, I don't know. It's just because okay, I used to be close with my one of my cousins, but then that was like when we were kids. Like we would always have like play dates or just go over and like play with her. But like now it's just like I really do not care. I feel bad because like what are they listening? It's not like
Well,
it's not like I don't care because they're still family, but like
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
am like no, I'm no way like close to them at all. Like not even with my adult because my adult cousins, they're already too old. Like they're all gonna get married. One of them's
Mm.
the last one's getting married in like May.
Mm.
So
Well, you have
like
adult cousins in Hong Kong?
yeah, they're all in Hong Kong.
Oh, because I've
They
only
just
seen your
they
like young cousins.
oh yeah, no. Like cousins on my dad's side, they're all old. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
they all live in Hong Kong and like they're all married and stuff. And the young ones are in my mom's side. So I'm like in between.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm like not close with any of my cousins. Not even like the ones in America.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
quite
strange.
close to my Canadian. Like we text each other, I'd say almost every day.
Oh
Especially the two youngest
wow.
ones. And then we have a bigger cousins group chat with like even the old ones, but then there are some that like don't talk because he's probably like sick of us because he's like in his 30s. He's like, oh my god, look at these children. But then like there are younger, like there are a few younger ones that I talk to on a regular basis. Yeah, much more. It's weird because like you would think that me being like geographically distant from them would mean that I'd be less close to them, but it's actually the other way around. I'm much closer to the people who are far away from me than the people who literally live like 10 minutes away from me. Affectionate.
Interesting.
Affectionate is the word. Affectionate. The Canadian cousins and the Canadian family is much more affectionate than the Chinese one.
Meanwhile, my whole family's in Hong Kong, so I don't even have my cousins' phone numbers. I don't.
What?
Yeah. And I mean, we follow each other on Instagram, but I kind of unfollowed one of them, but we don't have to talk about that. So I'm not close with my cousins at all, and I'm kind of jealous of people who are close with their cousins. It's like such an elite kind of, I don't know, family.
Relationship.
Yeah.
It's like your best friend, your best friends, and you're related by blood. How cool is
Yeah.
that?
If only. Because my cousins are kind of old. The young ones live kind of far. We only see each other during like New Year's. So I'm not really close with like the extended family. I like how different we
think-
are. Like my whole family's in Hong Kong. Like, and then for you and JCA, you have some parts of the family like elsewhere. And I think that's kind of cool. The multicultural aspect is really cool. I wish I had that, but
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like having family in Canada ruined Canada for me. Like, you probably always hear me saying, "Oh, Canada's so boring." Like, I say that, but I know it's probably not true. Like, obviously, Canada has some really fun places that I haven't been. But because I have family there, every time I go, I just go to like family places, and it makes it seem like the country is boring. And I think I've been to Canada like I probably go like once every 1 to 2 years, so I've been quite a lot. And each time I go there, I do the same thing. So my impression of Canada is like, oh, boring. But it's probably not. And the thing is, when I go there, I do more Chinese things than I do in Hong Kong. When I go to Canada, I 飲茶 way more than I 飲茶 in Hong Kong. I eat 茶餐廳 way more than I eat 茶餐廳 in Hong Kong. It's so weird. It's like us going there and my family is like, oh my god, they're from Hong Kong. Let's do some Hong Kong things with them because they probably miss it, not knowing that we literally do none of those things in Hong Kong.
That is so strange.
I also don't like that. It's not that I don't like it, but then I would wish that the formalities in Chinese families would be like less pronounced, I guess. You know how there's like so many different names that you have to call your relatives that you've only seen like once,
oh my
Oh,
once
yeah.
like every 5 years, and whenever you see them, you have to act all friendly and stuff. And you're like, oh my god, hi! I don't know who you are, but hi, like that type of thing. And you have to act so nice and like respectful and stuff because they're like your elders, you know. I get you have to be respectful towards your elders, but then there's so many formalities. I think it ruins the whole like family experience for me. I really wish that, like, to me, my idea of family is just like one close, you can be whoever you are, do whatever you want type of situation. But then in Chinese culture, it's like you have to be respectful, you have to act this certain way because they're your elders, you have to do this, blah 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 blah. No, I feel like it takes away some of the fun.
And like I think in relation to like Chinese culture, I think because we respect our elders so much that like when we see recent news about the attacks on elderly, we kind of we take it really deeply.
Yeah.
At least I take it really deeply because I don't know, we're grown to really like look up to these elderly people, like regardless of what they've done for society or what their job is or their social class or anything. We just know if it's an elder, we're expected to be respectful to them. And seeing like overseas people like hitting them when they're just like shopping for groceries or something really like breaks my heart. What do you guys
Yeah.
think about the current situation on that?
It's so sad because I look up to I have so much respect and like care for my elderlies, especially like my mom, like my mom's side, like grandma and grandpa, like, you know, like I love them, like they do so much. And like to see people like from halfway across the world and like, you know, elderlies like, you know, getting attacked, it's actually like really heartbreaking, because it's like, why would anyone do it? Like I understand like elderlies may be more vulnerable, and because it's hard for them to like fight back, right? Because they're so old. But it just, it's, I don't know, it's so sad. Don't understand why. I don't know.
When you think about it, if they were in their own country, say like China, where everybody literally looks the same as them, I guarantee that the motive, like the motive of like the attacks wouldn't even exist, because literally everyone around you looks the same, right? Like the motive, like the attack might still happen, but the motive will definitely be different.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it sadder for me.
Yeah, and also like the geographic distance, where this in Hong Kong for issues you can like at least do like something about it. But it's so far away that I don't know what to do about it. The feeling of
Yeah.
being so helpless is what gets me. Like you just see on news, but what can you do? Like I can't protest. I can't start an organization to, because I see some teenagers starting their own organizations to like accompany these elderly people as they go out to shop or something, so they could feel more safe. But we can't do that. So like, what can we do in Hong Kong? How can we help?
I don't know. Because it's hard, because like you don't see it in actual Asian countries. Well, maybe I think I was talking to someone, I don't remember. But I had a conversation to them about like the anti-Asian attacks and stuff. And you still see like sometimes in Asian countries that they not look up, but there's an obvious bias towards like foreigners. So
Yeah.
he gave an example, like one time in Vietnam, he was like at a store, and there was like a white dude like in front of him or like behind him. And they chose to serve the like they told the white guy to go up first so they can like help him first before helping like normal Asian people, which to me, like, you know, you like just that I don't know how to like put it in words.
No, I understand. Like even for us, right? Even us being like a subset of the population who goes to an international school speaking English, whenever we speak English in public, I notice that people like look at us
Yeah, yeah.
and they view us differently. Like, you know, like if I speak Cantonese, then I'm just like treated normally. But as soon as I start speaking English with friends or like just alone, or if they like hear me speaking it, they treat me differently. I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, I have a friend. What should we call her?
Pancake.
Okay,
Sure.
Pancake. I was eating with Pancake the other day, and Pancake told me the story because we were talking about this very topic. And she told me that when she's walking on the street with her cousin and they're talking in English, one guy just suddenly stopped her on the streets and was like, "Oh, 點解你突然間喺度講英文㗎？你知唔知道香港嚟㗎？香港人講廣東話㗎？" And after I
What?
heard that, I was like,
What
"What the
the
fuck?"
heck?
Yeah. And I was like, I couldn't even believe that would happen in like Hong Kong. I thought we were like more open, like to, I don't know, because Hong Kong has always, in my opinion, been quite accepting
Yeah,
ish,
like,
to
and it's
at least
already
my
diverse,
experience. Yeah.
and English is everywhere. So
Yeah.
that comment is so strange. Okay, maybe you should translate that for people who don't speak Chinese.
Oh, it basically means like in Hong Kong, we use Cantonese only. Why are you not speaking in Canto? I have never had any of these kind of situations
Same.
happen
I've
to
never
me.
had an experience like that.
Yeah, me neither.
It's usually the other way around for me. It's like, oh, why is your English so good? No, like
I hate that
not
so
why is your
much.
English so good? Not like that, but like, wow, your English is so good. Like that.
Oh, yeah. I feel like, okay, I get that people are like, oh my God, like, you know, you look like you're not native to my country. Like your English is, oh my God, so perfect. But it's like, man, I just, it like kind of feeds into the whole like Asian stereotype, and like the whole like, oh my gosh, Like, you're so good at my language. But I don't understand because, like, okay, if I can speak English and then you start shitting like people who like don't speak English when you're in their country, like sometimes it's a bit unreasonable. You know, like what if someone was like, "Oh, your English is so good," and then they go to China and then like they give you shit for speaking Chinese? Like, I don't that doesn't make sense. Or like they're like, "Why can't you speak English?" You know, like, I don't know. Sometimes I don't. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, but it's different in different situations though, right? In Hong Kong, when that happens for me, they say it in like a good way. Like
Yeah,
they're surprised in a good way. They're like, wow, like they see me as if I'm better because I'm good at English.
yeah,
But then, for example, when I go to Canada, like maybe in that specific neighborhood, because there's a lot, it's like a Chinese neighborhood, so they probably just assume I'm like a Chinese Canadian, so they don't really say anything. But I have had an experience when I road trip to I think Buffalo, New York. It's like not New York, it's like New York the state, not New York City. So it was still a pretty not rural, but it wasn't a city place at all. And I like someone commented like, "Oh wow, like your English is so good," like that, but not in like a good way. It's weird, like different situation, different place. They say the same thing, but it means a different thing. I was also having a conversation with someone the other day, and they got an offer from like a uni offers from US, and they were considering like where to go because like they have different options, and they're like, "Oh, I'm actually kind of scared to go to the US because of racism and
mm,
the gun violence." And to me, no, because I didn't apply to US, right? I only
yeah,
applied to UK. I was thinking like wow, I never considered this to be something that someone would be considering when going to uni. Like you're scared to go to a place because you're scared of how they will treat you and you're scared of what will happen. I don't know. It was a perspective. I guess it's kind of foolish of me not to consider that perspective in the first place. But after that person said it, I was like, wow.
yeah. Like, I used my dream used to go to the US, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like UCLA and stuff. But since the whole like coronavirus thing with Trump, and I was like, yo, it's a little bit dangerous. And you know, also like personal reasons why I'm not going, but I won't get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah. So I don't know, it's a bit scary. And now like where I've decided to go, it's like a town and not like a city.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like if I were in a city, I would be more like, especially with like the whole thing going on now, right? You know, um, I felt I would be less safe for there than if I were in a town, because I feel like in a town, like everyone kind of knows each other, and like you know, I would probably say it's like a bit safer. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't know until I get
I
there.
would also argue that a city is more diverse though, right? Like especially London.
Yeah. Oh, but I'm not going to London because
Oh, well, yeah.
London's a bit expensive for me.
True, true.
Yep.
So expensive.
That's why I'm not going. Haha. Yeah. Like, although it's diverse, I've heard like there's lots of like discrimination in London sometimes, especially
Yeah.
against Asians. Like I was talking to my friend the other day, and they were like, when they were in London, someone literally just said like "ching chong," like to their face, or like you know making some like racist remarks or like some shit like that. You know.
To be honest, I don't think we realize this now, but I think as soon as we go to uni, we'll realize how safe Hong Kong actually is.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like when I go out with friends, sometimes I come home at like 3, 4 a.m. Like I'm not scared at all. I just walk on the
Yeah.
street alone with my AirPods in. Like I'm not even thinking about someone is following me, or I'm not even thinking about like, oh, how am I gonna get home? Do I have to like what am I gonna do if someone like grabs me? Nothing. Like these thoughts never run through my mind. I feel so safe walking like on the streets. It's just,
Yeah. Like
and then when I see like yeah, I see like posts on Instagram or like social media in general, and then like I can't relate because Hong Kong is so I feel
safe.
safe walking home.
Yeah.
It's not even something I feel like I need to consider.
I feel like
Yeah.
Hong Kong is safe, but I have one experience where I went to SKSF with my friend to do service, and I forgot when it was, like a year or two ago. And then you know how SKSF is like really high up in like the middle of nowhere basically,
Mhm.
and it's really hard to get there unless like you can like, call the taxi or get someone to drive you up there because there aren't really public transport there. And then after we finished our service stuff, we had to walk down, but it was getting dark. But there's this one car there with like this creepy guy. And like me and my friend would just walk like, I don't know, up to like, I don't know, 30, 40 steps. And then the car would start to move and then it would move closer to us. But it like always kept a distance. But whenever we'd move, the car would
The
stop
car
and then move
moved.
again. Yeah, that was very scary. And then we ran down the mountain. That was the most exercise I've ever done in my life, I think. Because it was so scary. But that's one of the moments where I kind of realized how scary it was to be like alone.
Being followed.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then it felt so much safer when we were back into like the main road area because I knew that I was safer there. So at least like I know that Hong Kong is safe to some extent, but like after that experience, I was like, wow, even that can happen in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, like, I'm not saying Hong Kong's like 100% safe, but relatively, I think it is pretty safe.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of people being racist or just hating people in general, I was reading a book last night and the topic was why people basically the premise of the chapter was why people think the way they do and how what would it take to change their mind, basically like changing your mind. And the example they gave was New York Yankees fans hate Boston Red Sox fans and vice versa for like no reason at all. And when they did like a survey, they tried to get the fans to explain why they hated, like Yankees fans to explain why they hated the Red Sox fans, and Red Sox fans to explain why they hated the Yankees fans. And the funny thing was, both fans from like the two different teams, the words they used to describe why they hated other fans were like similar. They were identical almost. There were words like obnoxious, like annoying, loud. Like they gave the same reasons to hate each other. So basically they were giving the same reasons to like hate themselves almost. What I'm trying to get to here, sometimes I think our hatred or dislike towards certain things or certain people is unjustified. And I just want to like get to the bottom of it. Like why do you think people hate like Asians or anything just because of, I don't know, in this case the color of our skin, or in the Yankees case what baseball team that they support?
Mm. That's interesting.
I
Like,
think okay, I think one of the most popular opinions is that they're trying to push responsibility off of themselves because a lot of the times I see on the news of how the commenters talk about how the US government might want to push off the blame of their bad control of COVID onto Asians. And that's why they're kind of feeling the hate to kind of reduce the responsibility that's on them to control COVID. And I think that's one of the most popular opinions out there.
For me, I personally don't think I can apply to like the hating people because of their ethnicity or their race, but more so, for example, like I support Chelsea Football Club, right? So as a Chelsea Football Club fan, I sort of have an automatic disliking towards our like rivals, Hotspurs fans or like Arsenal fans. And after reading that chapter last night, I sort of asked myself why. And the method, I guess, that the book told me or like found out to be the most effective was to list reasons why our opinions about the people or things that we dislike are arbitrary. So like it asks us to consider if you were born in another household, how likely would it be that you supported the Yankees instead of the Red Sox? Like these type of scenarios. And I think it really breaks down and makes you realize how influenced you are by your external environment and the people you surround yourself with. For example, if my dad didn't support Chelsea when I was younger or like watch Chelsea, I probably wouldn't support Chelsea. Does that make sense?
yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Because the reason I like Chelsea is because of my dad like watching Chelsea on TV. I have no reason to dislike Arsenal fans or like Hotspurs fans at all, despite the rivalry. Because the reason behind it is just so like fragile, right? It doesn't make sense. I think that helped me like put things into perspective. And I think this can be applied to the race thing as well. It's like sort of how people always say, oh, like you're not born to you're not born like hating something, right? It's what you expose yourself to that changes your opinion or shapes how you view this thing.
Mhm.
Why do you think?
Maybe they're just like that, not gullible, but easily like they just kind of believe it, and there's like no like they're like not a logical person maybe, or they're just like meh. Because that reasoning, there is no law. Like there is, when you really truly think about it, there's no correlation that every single China person would have it. That like literally does not make sense.
Mhm.
And like these, you have like these like new like COVID strains and like that don't originate in like other countries, but you still call it like, oh, like China virus, blah blah blah, right?
Mhm.
So in that sense, I feel like people who do think that, like, or who think like like fucking like COVID is a hoax, like it's not, and that reasoning, like maybe they think that because their own thinking like that is like illogical, right? Like not saying like they're dumb, but like they won't think twice about things, they just kind of like see it, oh, why not just believe it? I don't know, hard to say, to be honest.
And I think similar to what Jacia said, I think the bandwagon effect also plays a huge part. We're so TOK today. But I think because so many public figures, Trump is promoting this idea of divide, that a lot of people just follow it because it's the whole appeal to authority kind of thing. And as JC said, it's just lazy. Have your own opinion. Learn and educate yourself before
Yeah.
making up your thoughts. But I'm also sometimes guilty of that because sometimes when I read stuff on Instagram, when they like provide me with one opinion and like the whole article or the post is biased, then I get easily convinced into one kind of situation. So I guess this is kind of a learning experience because sometimes I find out when people ask me about stuff, I'd be like, oh, I don't like that. And they'd ask me why and be like, oh, I once read this thing on Instagram. But then there's so many other perspectives that we still haven't read up on.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I think what we're saying right now is true, but I think that even more important thing that is should be addressed is like how we should be approaching this thing and like I guess solving it. I guess one thing to say like yes, the issue or like the problem exists, but then it's another completely different thing to be like, okay, it exists. How should we tackle this? Like, how do we break this down?
Yeah, like
How do we
what
make
can
sure
we
this doesn't
do?
happen again? What can we do? Exactly. Like, just saying it exists isn't necessarily, I guess, an a long-term sustainable solution, in my opinion.
Mhm. So according to one of HK Kovsa's posts, we recently did a post on racism and xenophobia. And one of the methods that we posted was to call people out for their racist comments and encourage victims to speak out, learn about the actual situation instead of trusting conspiracy theories, educate people, bring up the topic, stop calling COVID-19 the Chinese virus or Wuhan virus. And there's one point that I don't agree with, but it's also in our post, but it says, if you have a problem with the CCP, go ahead and attack them, but do not add fuel to this fire of hate on your fellow Asians. I feel like, how effective is this? Like the solutions that we provided on our post. Because I personally think it's effective to like a small group kind of extent, but what kind of impact will it have on the bigger picture? Like calling people out once or twice, will they actually change or reflect? Because Janet talked about how we point out issues where we don't think of solutions, but now we have thought of some solutions. But now, like, how effective are these solutions? You know?
I think we can get into this much deeper. Like, there's so much more to this, and we're probably gonna finish off soon, so we can like continue this like conversation in another episode. But for now, my like preliminary thoughts on this is that like I think in order for the solution to be effective, you have to like humanize your opponent or like the person that you're trying to confront, right? Like even sometimes when I do something wrong, for example, I find that it's much more effective when my parents treat me like I'm an adult and tell me like, hey, like you shouldn't be doing this instead of just straight out like yelling at me. Like it's never an effective way or an effective approach when you straight out just like call someone out and like make them feel even worse about themselves, because all that's going to do is make them defensive, and that's never going to be, you know, yield useful or like fruitful results. Like I watched a TED talk before, I think probably like 8 months ago. There was this like black jazz musician. Like the title was like I can link this in like the show notes. The title was something about like there's this black jazz musician who befriended members of the KKK and actually managed to convince them to convert and like leave the KKK. And I thought it was really,
Oh,
really
wow.
inspiring because his approach was not to like be like, you like racist motherfuckers, like what the fuck is wrong with you? Like that wasn't his approach. Like he recognized that this was the wrong way to do things.
Yeah.
Instead, what he did was like humanize them. Like he treated them with respect and dignity, the same way that he would want them treat him, right? And
Mhm.
like over time, he actually managed to befriend these people, and they realized that like how can you hate someone you don't even know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they managed to like know him as like a real genuine person instead of just judge him just because he's like black. And they actually managed to convert, and now like they're friends. Like I thought it was really, really, really inspirational. And I was like,
Mm.
we need more people like this guy.
Oh,
I think
yeah, because yeah,
you,
Rachel,
you
go.
go. You go.
No, you go.
I think like the whole idea that Jana is talking about links to what like an article I've read. It's on restorative justice and how it's much more effective than like traditional methods of getting people to like own up to their crime. So you guys know what restorative justice is, right?
I don't think I know the like the details, but I think I know the broad
The
general idea
gist,
that
yeah.
you're trying to.
So it's
Yeah.
basically when the offender and the victim organizes a meeting, like, or even with like people from other stakeholders or other parties. So they
Mhm.
organize basically a meeting so the offender is able to understand the impact of their actions from different perspectives and different angles. And it was shown to be very, very effective in allowing the offender to not reoffend and redo the crime. And it also found to be very effective to increase understanding between different parties. So I think that is one of the ways that our society is kind of shifting towards from traditional like, oh, if you're wrong, like we just slap you or something like that. We're changing more to this kind of spiritual healing kind of system. And I think it will be more effective. We'll see more effects in the future.
Same. I think yeah, I agree. I'm going to read more into it, but from what you said, and I think if the general idea I have in my head is right, I do agree. I think it's also
Jason?
important to note though that like for example, like speaking of like the black jazz musician, like you have to recognize that it's a very difficult thing for him to do. Like you can't expect everyone to just have the uh tolerance or like ability to like take a step back and look at the bigger picture, because it's very easy for us to get worked up about the tiniest of things. I
Mhm.
feel like, and that's something I'm trying to improve on myself. But yeah, like you can't expect everyone to be as wise as this person, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Okay, Rachel. That's a good way to end it.
Mhm. Recommendations.
Recommendations.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna start first because, listen to Peaches. Too good.
I knew it. I already
Justin
knew it.
Bieber. Actually, you know what? Listen to his whole album, Justice.
It's so good.
Oh my God, it's called Justice. Nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good one.
Okay, my recommendation, and I am not shitting you. This is like my favorite song by far. Like out of every song that I've heard, like it's better than Peaches, like in my
Mhm.
opinion. It's called "The Kiss of Venus" by Paul
Oh
McCartney.
my God, I
It's
love
so
it.
good,
It's so good.
dude. I literally listen to this song like 10 times a day on repeat.
Came out like 2 weeks ago.
so,
I listened to it the first day it came out.
I know it's so
It's so good.
good.
Oh my God.
It's called "The Kiss of Venus" featuring Dominic Fike by Paul McCartney, like the
I'm
guy
so
from the
proud of him.
Beatles.
So
Like
proud of him.
it's music to your ears. I'm not kidding you. You
Yeah,
have to listen to
yeah.
it.
The lyrics. I also like the lyrics.
I know, like,
Yeah.
and everything just flows so well.
Yeah.
I'm so sad it's really short, but it's so
Mhm.
good. Rachel.
Let me think. Because all of you recommended songs today, and now there's this app called Forest. Probably
Oh
a
my
lot
god.
of people use it.
I use
But
it.
but it's pretty good for me because I am always on my phone. Whenever you guys text, I always immediately reply, I have a problem. So this app really helps me to because it's basically a timer app where you can set the time you want to study or the time that you want to rest. And there's also functions where you can click that you cannot leave the app when the timer's not done. So it kind of prevents me from checking my phone all the time. So that's good, especially since exams are
No.
Oh, and there's for this app you need to pay, but it's really cheap. It's like $15. But there's a fake version if you want it. I think it's called Flora or something like that, but whatever. Forest is the real thing. Oh yeah, and it's
Alright.
also good because when you earn your coins, you can also like donate
Plant trees.
to plant a real tree. Yes.
Oh, like a
so cute.
real
Yeah,
actual
like a
tree?
Yeah.
yeah.
Real tree in like an actual
Oh,
forest.
so you can be smart and environmentally friendly.
Heck yeah.
Yes. Janet, download it.
I've heard of it before, but then I'm so cheap. I was like, oh, $15. I just didn't download.
真係
But yeah, I think that's it from us today. I sound like a teacher, but yeah.
Leave us a rating, please. I think it helps a lot. Push us on the algorithm.
Heck yeah.
And check us out on Instagram and ask questions on our
Tell
Teleon.
on me.
Tell on me.
Tell
I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.